Helen, prolific music writer, author and interviewer Helen Herimbi-Moremi, known for her deep insight into the music industry and her ability to connect with artists. Over the years, she has built a reputation for her thoughtful critiques and engaging storytelling, making her a respected voice in the world of music journalism. This past Friday, Helen launched her highly anticipated podcast titled a Helen Herimbi-Moremi Podcast. And in this new venture, she takes her passion for music and storytelling to a different medium, inviting listeners to join her as she engages in candid and heartfelt conversations with various musicians. Each episode promises to delve into the artists' journeys, exploring their creative processes, personal struggles, and the inspirations behind their music. Helen joins us now for more on this. A very good morning to you, Helen. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
What an amazing intro. I feel like I need to just take it and take it with me everywhere I go.
Right, right. Because it's befitting for an amazing podcaster as well.
I mean, I'll take it.
How's it been?
It's been really great. Yeah. We launched the new podcast yesterday. Our first featured guest is Zinqumalo. Not sure if you're familiar with her, but she's been on the show, the voice of Amapiano right now. I think she's phenomenal. So that was our first episode yesterday.
Wow, that's beautiful, beautiful, isn't it? And people who followed your career would say that this is long overdue, but then it's a reflection of what you've been doing, really. So what is it that we should take away from this podcast?
It's so interesting that people would think it's long overdue because I've been podcasting since 2018, and I've had a few podcasts, but this is my newest one. And this one is specifically centered around musicians who intrigue and interest me. Okay. So that's what people should be expecting. They should be expecting not necessarily who is relevant in the sense of putting out new music, but relevant in the sense of having something to say in their music.
Yeah. Let's talk about the significance of the title, Helen. How does it reflect the essence of your podcast? And are there any artists that made you go,
Oh, there's quite a few artists who made me go, I'm so grateful for that. And essentially, is about the things that make you stop and actually pause, right? The things that make you intrigued. So I think there's a lot of artists who are putting out music, but does it make you stop? No, not all the time. So these ones are specifically the ones that I'm I want to know more about that. So I'm going to ask them.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you pause and sometimes it makes you shocked. Sometimes it makes you wonder. Yeah. Was that intentional, though?
Yes, it's definitely intentional because I feel like we don't have a shortage of podcasts, not just in this country, but in the world.
True.
But we don't always want to know about someone's history or just tell us the story from when you were born at Baragwanath or whatever.
True.
Sometimes we want to know when you're talking about Vaughn's song, who is Vaughn? Oh, that's your brother? I didn't know that. What happened to your brother? Oh, he passed away. So those are the things that intrigue me, and I hope that they'll intrigue the people who are watching the podcast as well.
So you basically cut out all the fat and just focus squarely on music and musicians and their lives. What if they want to explore other, elements of their lives or their careers that are outside of the musical genre? Yeah,
it's a very open conversation.
Right.
So we go where the music is going, and you'll see in some of the upcoming episodes that there are times when we're talking about specifically one song for 30 minutes. So it's not we need to talk about 8 songs or everything that is on the album, right? And if an artist does feel like they want to share more, I believe that I've cultivated a space for them to be able to do that and to authentically be themselves.
And the difference of how we approach interviews between you and I is that I always cut out the fat. I cut to the chase and go straight to the point. I mean, that's the nature, of course, of news broadcasts. But you go the extra mile. You push the envelope. You make the artists, open up about the various aspects and facets of their lives. How do you manage to do that?
I think a big part of it is having a rapport. I've been a journalist for almost 20 years, specifically focused on music and entertainment.
Okay.
So many of the people that I speak to, I already know. But for this podcast specifically, it's people that I wanted to challenge myself with and actually see, can I still have that rapport with you if I've just met you? Can I still bring out of you some depth and insight that people can take away? And I think we've managed to do that.
Yeah. And what have been some of the most memorable moments that you've encountered on your podcast, and some of the revelations that made you think,
Well, there's only a few episodes that we filmed so far, so I hope that there'll be more things that make me go, But I think one of the most intriguing things comes from, I interviewed an artist called Sishi, who is actually also an actor, and just figuring out his true passion of making alternative music, of making folk music even. And that is not what people would expect from someone who's like on mainstream TV.
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the things that are going to interest and intrigue others as well.
And having said that, how does storytelling play a role in terms of connecting artists with your audiences, and how does your podcast facilitate that connection?
Yeah, I think storytelling is everything.
Yeah.
Narrative is everything, because if people don't feel like they can resonate and relate to what you're saying, then they're going to forget about what you said. But if there's a story behind what you're saying, they'll likely remember, like, oh, like the song I just mentioned about Vaughn's song, like, I will always think about Filala's brother when I see that song, because that is the story behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
And have there been any challenges in terms of transitioning from the traditional writing format to a podcast format, or it is just seamless for you?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question. I feel like I've been doing a lot in terms of storytelling on various platforms and avenues for many years. So for me, it doesn't feel extremely different. It just feels like another thing I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the differences, because I've been watching so many podcasts, and I know podcasters have been watching me or my colleagues in the industry, but there's various differences that they can pick up. What are some of them?
You tell me. What do you think are the differences when you look? Because I don't feel like it's that much different. It's you connecting with someone, right? What do you think are the differences?
Well, the differences, I would say, they're quite technical. I mean, first of all, the timing. We're very much guided by the time, and you guys can go for even an hour, isn't it?
Yeah. We decide what we want to keep in and what we leave on the cutting floor.
Yeah. And then how do you manage to keep viewers glued to your podcast? I mean, what are some of the interesting elements that make you or make viewers stay tuned as compared to traditional TV?
Yeah. I don't think that that's the focus for me. Like, the focus is not necessarily to make sure that people are glued. The focus is to give people something valuable to take away. So if somebody drops off of the podcast in 3 minutes, that's okay with me, because it means it wasn't meant for you. Right. But for you in TV, you might go, oh, our ratings.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And any specific, themes that you'd like to be excited about, or that you'd love to explore in the future outside of music, or are we strictly sticking to music?
Oh, no, I love music. I love entertainment. I feel like pop culture is something that I'm going to zone in on a lot more in 2025. But I think most people know me for music and trust me for that. And it's something that I love. So I hope to continue doing that.
And beyond the podcast, how do you see the future of music journalism evolving? And how would you play a part in that evolution?
Ooh, I'm not going to answer the last question because I don't know how to play a part yet. I'm going to take it a day at a time.
But you can determine that destiny, can't you?
I?
Yeah, you can. Well, I think you can.
I think we're going to see, because a lot is going to change. If you think about music journalism 20 years ago and what it is now, things have changed. And I think what's been great is like just democratizing every platform, right? So anyone can start a Spotify account. Anyone has access to YouTube, right? So you decide, do I want to be on camera? Do I want to write something? Do I want to blog? How do I want to be involved in music?
Yeah.
And I think the best thing is to like just network across, as opposed to like up or down. And then that way you become a trusted voice in music.
Yeah. And I quite like that keyword that you use, democratizing, the podcasting culture. So in terms of owning it, are you strictly following the whole concept and culture of podcasting, or do you just want to chart out your own path?
I think I've been really, really blessed. Like, God is the greatest. I've been able to chart out my own path in any space that I'm in, which is why I can't say to you, this is the evolution, this is what I'm going to do, right? So I think it's going to be a really interesting path, and I hope everyone comes along for the ride.
Right. And the reason I'm asking is that, there's so many podcasts, known and unknown, and who do you look up to in terms of their approach to interviews, their approach to the whole podcasting culture that you'd want to incorporate into your own podcast?
Yeah, I think podcasting is a medium, so I wouldn't say necessarily that there's something extra special about podcasters, but like podcasts that I love are podcasts like the Sobering podcast, which is like the preeminent hip hop podcast in this country. I absolutely love Danielle Smith. She's got a podcast called The Black Girl Songbook. So a lot of what I listen to is very music centered, very pop culture centered. And those are some of the ones that I'm like, if you listen to nothing else, listen to this.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Helen, great chatting to you. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, that was Helen Herimbi-Moremi talking to us about bringing her rich musical expertise into the podcasting sphere with a new podcast that went live this past Friday.